Welcome back to Comic Book Savant, and this is Spinnerack Bros episode 6. I'm your host, James Harris, and this is your co-host on the other end, Mr.
It's Keith Holland. What's up, guys?
All right, guys. This episode, we were going back and forth on what we wanted to cover. You guys really enjoyed from the feedback that I got. I got a few emails about. You guys really were interested in the talk we did a few episodes back on like when we talked about DC films and just the comic book industry in general, which was a kind of impromptu thing that we did. And so we wanted to follow up with that because it was a huge announcement made recently about DC finally becoming a part of Comixology Unlimited, their Comixology subscription service. So we thought we would talk about that and some of the other moves that are pertaining to the DC Universe streaming service. So I guess we'll just dive in. Heath, what are your thoughts on this? I kind of felt like it was a big announcement, even though it really was just like a press release kind of just dropped. And it was like they were, all of a sudden, DC was just a part of Comixology, woohoo, no big fanfare about it.
Yeah, I don't know much about the announcement. I didn't see the press release. Basically, you're my press release because I just get a text from you like, bro, DC's on Comixology. And I was like, sweet. So then, I have to go get on Comixology, start checking it all out. And, we've been waiting for this for, at least a year, I think, that people have been asking for this.
Yeah. I mean, really, people have been asking for it. I mean, yeah, I guess it's been more like about a year solid, especially when Marvel came on board. The biggest thing was when is DC coming? When is DC coming in? And I guess DC already knew that they were going to be launching the DC Universe app. So they just kind of played coy about it. And
they talked around it. They would say things like, well, we want to make sure that when we do enter the digital subscription marketplace or whatever, that we have the best, most accessible platform for that service. But they never said they were always we're just looking into the best platforms for our comics in the future. And so they knew good and well that they were planning the DC Universe streaming service.
Yeah, for sure.
But I guess they just couldn't announce it until they had everything lined up.
Yeah, and for me, it was really, I found out by accident. I was doing some recording, and I had I always keep a tab open with Comixology open because whenever I just get a free moment, I'll just read on different stuff that I'm going to cover on a podcast or whatever. And I just happened to refresh the home page of it, and it was DC now. And I was like, what? I was like, maybe that's wrong. So let me refresh it again. Maybe it's April. I was like, no, it's not April. So it can't be April Fool's joke. So I'm like, oh, okay. Did I search on the internet and was yeah, they just dropped the press release an hour or so before. And it's they're just there. And,
so what did the press release say?
It basically was just super general. Now as of today, we're a part of Comixology Unlimited. We're looking forward to the partnership. It's not going to be any additional cost to the service at all. So it's still the $6 a month. We also included DC Vertigo. So it's two tiers of it. So it's DC Comics proper, a part of it. And then it was another tab on the homepage for DC Vertigo. But both are a part, and they dropped a fairly good amount in a press release. They just basically listed some of the titles that they added as of now that were available, on the site for DC as well as Vertigo. And it was a fairly good. I mean, I have the list here of the titles that they had on the press release, but I've seen even more than this once I actually went in. But it's some of the bigger stuff. You got your All-Star Superman. The Animal Man run from, I guess, New 52, Aquaman from New 52, a lot of stuff that pretty much, content that ties into the movie that just dropped. A lot of it is the New 52 stuff from 2011, the 2011, 2016 run, Arrow from around that same time, Batgirl, the new Batgirl stuff, Batman, Batwoman, The Dark Knight Returns, of course, the classic Batman stories, A Long Halloween, Batman White Knight, which is more recent, Cyborg, Green Lanterns, Harley Quinn, Identity Crisis, the Injustice comics, Injustice Gods Among Us, and Injustice 2, Multiversity, the new Superman, Supergirl, Teen Titans, Wonder Woman. So like they're kind of core main books or their top selling books, like the Harley Quinn stuff, and then some key stories. Identity Crisis was, a big story for them. So those, and I've seen more titles, but this is just like, they got a lot of different Green Lantern stuff, not just Green Lanterns, but a lot of Hal Jordan Green Lantern, a lot of, Simon, what's his name? Simon Baz, the newer Green Lantern, like a lot of the newer stuff from New 52 and Rebirth with the Green Lanterns as well, and the classic stuff. It's a lot of Jeff Johns stuff, a lot of his Flash work. Yeah, I saw a lot of his Flash stuff. I saw a lot of his Green Lantern stuff. He's displayed pretty heavy his major runs on a lot of the DC stuff. Vertigo, their main stuff, 100 Bullets, American Vampire, Astro City, Books of Magic, Clean Room, Doom Patrol. I think this is the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol that everybody has raved about, like that run. Ex Machina, Fables, Hellblazer, Preacher, The Sandman, Scalped, Sweet Tooth, Transmetropolitan, V for Vendetta, Watchmen, Why the Last Man. So like they're huge properties. A lot of these, I know like Why the Last Man is coming to TV. We got the new Watchmen series that's going to be coming on HBO. So a lot of this stuff too is tied into bigger stuff. You got Jason Aaron's Scalped work, you got Preacher, Sandman, Jeff Lemire, Sweet Tooth work, so it's a lot of big writers, big creative people, like their works with DC is being thrown out there on this for people to check out. So when
they're talking about these things being on there, a lot of that is the Comixology Unlimited aspect of that is very limited for a lot of the titles, right? Because I know I looked up Watchmen, and I think it's only the first 4 issues of Watchmen are part of the Comixology Unlimited program.
Exactly, and that and that too, and on my YouTube channel, I with the Comic Book Collector's Guide, I go in a lot of depth talking about the Comixology service, and I compare like Comixology Unlimited to Marvel Unlimited and the pros and cons of the different services, and anytime they add a new publisher on, you have to think the publisher has a hand in what they're bringing over. And so it'll come in short bursts. I know that was a big thing when they first started Comixology Unlimited that turned a lot of people off. It was like, okay, well, I got the first 2 trades of Walking Dead or the first one for free, and now I got to pay for the rest of it. Well, it builds over time. Like people were still making that same argument. But if you go now, a few years later, because I'm trying to remember exactly how long Comixology Unlimited has been around. I want to say it's been around for maybe 3 to 4 years. Maybe this is going into year 4. I think it's been definitely 3 years because I think I've been subscribed to it for about 1.5 years or so now. I think just myself, and I tried it before, but then had canceled it because I, like you, felt like the offerings were kind of limited. But once Marvel came on board, it really kicked the whole service into another gear because the older publishers like Image and Valiant, now you can get like the first 10 volumes of Walking Dead for free, just check those books out and read them. Same thing with Valiant. Those guys, because they constantly are adding on books every month. At the beginning of each month, they drop more books and more books. And Marvel's been really savvy, and I hope DC is smart enough to do the same thing. Like Marvel, like even some of the newer books that just like dropped when they just did all the new #1 issues, like the new Hulk book that I've heard a lot of good things about that has a whole horror spin on it. Like that first trade literally just came out, and this month when January turned around for Comixology, they added it up there for free, so you can read that book, already. So they sprinkle in some of their newest stuff. So, you might know more about this than me because I know you subscribed for a long time to Marvel Unlimited. It was normally a gap of like 6 months, right, before they would release the next, it was always like 6 months behind, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So now it seems like they're doing it, especially too, because they're double shipping so many books. Like that first trade comes out in 3 months, and it was like the trade had literally just came out. And I was like, oh, wow, it's already on Comixology Unlimited to check out for free. And they'll do it with some first issues to try to get your interest geared up. As soon as it comes out, they'll throw it on Comixology Unlimited for you to check out for certain first issues of like a newer book and to get your interest anyway.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
So it's going to be interesting how DC, I think Marvel really embraced it. And, everybody wondered because Marvel didn't mind participating with Comixology Unlimited, even though they have a competing service in Marvel Unlimited. So people was like, well, why isn't DC throwing their hat into the arena, even if they were planning DC Universe just to cater to their fans that are more on the digital side of things with their own dedicated subscription service? It's seemingly been working for Marvel because Marvel Unlimited has been around for a decade or more? It's been around forever.
It's been that long?
It seemed like it's been that long. Gosh. Okay. Yeah, because I've been married for 8.5. Yeah, it's been over 10 years. Because I remember when I was still in North Carolina working for Time Warner, and this was 09? Yeah, so that was like 10 years ago, like 09, 08, 09. Because some of my friends had it in the very, very beginning that I worked with, and they told me about it. So it's been around for about that long.
Makes me feel really old.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's like it doesn't seem like it's been that long.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you. I was thinking about that. I was like, it's Marvel, and they still are doing it. So it has to be successful on some level for them. So you just does it. But we've talked about this before where we've said like over at DC and DC Films, that's over in general that they're just all over the place in some of the decisions they make. Because I don't think having a digital subscription service would have hurt them in any way. No,
it would have. I think it would have helped them, but I don't think that they have. I don't know how much of it's DC. See, here's the thing. I don't know how much of DC's decisions are being made by DC because it seems like Warner Brothers is very involved with the day-to-day of DC.
I agree.
In a way that I don't think is reflected in Disney. I mean, Disney is very much using Marvel as a testing ground for their movies and things like that, but I don't gather that Disney is like, okay, don't do this, don't put this out, don't put this out. But it really does seem like over in DC, like so many of the decisions being made creatively are being fueled by the corporate aspect at Warner Brothers. And so I can't say like how much of it is the publishing arm, but it really does seem like they are just creatively, or the decision making is just all over the place.
Right.
Because you're right. Like, I mean, it absolutely would have been, in my opinion, it would have benefited DC to have a streaming or a digital streaming, the subscription model, the digital subscription model, the unlimited model. But no, they waited for years and then they started teasing this, DC Universe thing. But even that, as we talked about, it seems very, like an afterthought. It doesn't seem like this is something that they built from the ground up and planned and like, okay, let's have this and this. It seems like it was just kind of like, okay, we'll throw this on there. I mean, it really feels like something that got put together in the course of about 2 months. I
agree. I feel like it's, which we kind of talked about this before we recorded, just in text and back and forth. Like it kind of feels like it's a panic move because DC Universe as a service is not doing that well. I feel like when I see advertising for it, it's like it's begging people to subscribe to it. And I know I talked about one of the podcasts that I was coming off of Titans, I was going to go ahead and do my yearly subscription, but the holidays came up and I haven't gotten around to it. And so I'm just still paying it month to month. And, as Titans has finished and Young Justice has started rolling out, where I saw the value in the service before, is my anticipation of like recommending the service so highly has kind of dropped because, it's just I think they're dropping 3 episodes every week for Young Justice every Friday. After the first 3, I wasn't like as stoked as I was like coming off, even though I thought the beginning part of Titans was a little divisive with some of the choices they made. It got better as it went along. I'm hoping maybe it's the same thing, but it wasn't even the catch in the first 3 episodes, and I love the other seasons of Young Justice. I thought it was really good cartoon years ago when it was on Cartoon Network, and it just going back to it, it didn't grab me in the same way to be like, I can't wait the next week to see the next few episodes. It'd be like, oh, when it comes out next week, I'll watch it. But it wasn't like with Titans. It was like each time I watched the episode, I was like chomping at the bit for the next one and the next one and the next one. And I'm just not feeling it here. I think maybe their foray might be more with the live action. I know Doom Patrol is coming in the next couple of months. I think I'm probably a little bit more stoked for the live action stuff than the cartoon. The cartoon thing's just so far falling a little flat, and it's kind of making me wane on the service. And I still feel like what you said too, that the right people aren't making the right decisions, because I still feel like that this service should have been launching the end of this year. But I know they wanted to get their service out because everyone knew Disney Plus was coming, and they wanted to kind of get ahead of that trend. But you launch your service, you don't have content built up, and you're stretching out the content you do have, and you want people to sign up for your service, and you're not going to maintain or get subscriptions with parsing out content weekly. Like, I don't pay for a streaming service to watch weekly television. I watch that on free television, and there's plenty of shows to watch there. When Netflix set the precedence of the the binge watch method, and when I go to any subscription service, that's what I expect. And I think that's been the big Achilles. And like you said, the decisions on how they're rolling the shows out just seem like someone is blindfolded throwing knives or throwing darts at a board just at random choices, and like, oh, that's the one we're gonna go with. Like, we hit that one, we're gonna go with that. It doesn't make any rhyme or reason. It's
the same problem that we see with the DC movies, which is that they want to be competitive in today's marketplace, but they don't seem to understand how to do that or what people want from their service.
Yeah, and I feel like it's hurting them. Like you said, I feel like ultimately these choices are hurting them instead of helping them, because they would make them more consumer friendly,
Yeah, and so now here we have this DC addition to Comixology, and it does feel, we were talking about, like you said, we were talking about it, and I said, I read this as a failure of the DC Universe streaming service, because they hyped it, and when people would say, well, when is DC joining Comixology? They would say, well, we have plans for our whatever, and then they've dropped the DC streaming service on us now, and now quietly, 2-3 months later, maybe, however long it's been, 6 months, I don't know.
About 4 or something like that. I done lost track. It's about yeah.
Here we go. Here now they're on Comixology, just quietly, and it feels like it feels like a defeat to me. But I mean, that's totally open to interpretation. That's how it really does feel like a consolation.
Yes, I totally agree with you 100% on that. That's exactly what it feels like. And it feels kind of like fan service, because they know the fans have been wanting it, and they've kind of lost face, because a lot of diehard comics fans don't like how comics are on DC Universe. Like, how I saw it was parsed out, how it was spread out, how things are like, this is here for a limited time, then we're going to pull it, and we got this curated list of comics that we're going to bring on and off and off and on. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want what I want. You have this huge library of historic books and historic characters. I want to be able to just dig into what I want to dig into and read what I want to when I want to read it. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, oh, it's infuriating. And the reader, I mean, I guess for certain people, because I watched a lot of like demos they did leading up to the service launching with different, like, various companies and YouTubers and stuff like that. And they were like, saying like, well, you can pull up the comic through the app on your like Apple TV or your Roku, and you can read. I don't want to read a comic on my big TV screen. It's a more intimate experience of me like pulling it up on my phone, or maybe my my iPad, or for me, I do a lot of reading just off my iMac in my office when I read comics. So that's more the experience that I want to go to, and it just felt weird through that service for some reason. And I just like, I just hope they do it through Comixology. I use Comixology, to get all my books. I read all my books through that, either on my tablet or mainly off my computer screen, occasionally on my phone. I'm good with that. Like, just stick with that. That works. And that's been a winning formula for Comixology. They were a small, separate company. They did crazy business. Amazon bought them. They've, just have improved over and, more and more over since, Amazon bought them, about 2, maybe going on 3 years ago now, since they acquired them. And they've just gotten better and better. It's a solid service, and they put the money behind it with the servers and, the other little hiccups and stuff Comixology used to have before the acquisition. It's just a solid platform all the way around, Yeah. So, I just think that was a better move. This whole custom made, you can view them everywhere. I want to watch shows on TV. I don't want to read a comic on the big screen going panel to panel to panel. No.
The only thing that I can think is that was them trying to innovate, to try to bring people in to comics who aren't necessarily interested in comics. Because let's face it, there's a lot of people who aren't interested in comics these days. They're interested in the characters and the stories, but they can get it from Arrow or they can get it from, the Justice League movie or whatever. And I feel like maybe that was Warner Brothers saying, well, if we innovate this so that you can read comics on your TV, maybe that'll attract new readers. So I suppose it was worth a shot. But like you, no, I'm not interested in reading on my TV.
Well, do you think that people are not interested in comics per se, or is it still the perception that comics are kind of like a nerdy, geeky kind of thing, and it's a high barrier to entry for people because it seems like such an exclusive thing to get into? Like, I think about that a lot now, in especially what I'm focusing on. Well, on the podcast as well as even on the YouTube channel with the Comic Book Collector's Guide, I feel like it's people that want to get into comics, but they just don't know where to start. So that's where I feel like, for me personally, after doing this for so long, is that I feel like I owe it to the listeners that is so many, and certain people that reach out to me now are saying, I've been away from comics for 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years, and I'm getting back into comics and I don't know where to go. I'm so behind on everything. A lot of people are reaching out to me that are coming back to comics, or I've through the YouTube channel, I'm getting comments where, it's parents that one father was like, I found your channel because I took my son, I think he said his son was like 8 years old or something like that. He said, took him to see Into the Spider-Verse. He's in love with Spider-Man. He wants to read comics. He looked at one of my reviews for Marvel Unlimited, and he was like, you had a really good review on it. It helped me decide I'm going to gift it to him for Christmas, blah, 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 blah. So I'm getting a lot of that. So I don't think it's people are not interested. I just think it's this allure, like this skepticism, around it, where it feels like if you're not really a nerd and you're not really in the know, like I felt like for a long time we didn't invite people into the hobby, and I think it's we have a responsibility now to make it as accessible as possible for new people, because I don't think people are not interested. They just don't know how to start. And if we show them how to start and direct them on, if you saw Aquaman and you like the character and you want to read more, pick up these graphic novels. Here's his origins. Here are his recent origins. Here is some of the content that they pulled for the movie, and give them places to go. I feel like people will follow if they just know, but coming in cold and they're not used to comics, they don't know where to go to research that kind of stuff to get that information. So we have to make it readily available for them, I think.
Okay. I don't know that my experience reflects that, but
gotcha.
So you are the comic book savant. So I do think people are going to come to the comic book savant and say, hey, where do I start with comics? My experience with Serial at Midnight is I deal with, because I'm talking about other things. I mean, you talk about other things too, but I feel like I attract, a more casual audience for some of this stuff, and I do see that there's not the interest that there used to be. To the point that people will say, I'm not interested in that. Like, comics seem cool, but I'm not interested in reading, and I think that that's really what it is that there has been a general decline in reading across the board. The comic book industry as a whole, I think, maybe somebody could quote me otherwise, I do believe it is currently at maybe an all-time low as far as monthly readership. Now, they crank out a ton of titles to try to balance that out, but I think as far as the people reading comics on a monthly basis, I don't think it's ever been lower than it currently is. And I think that's because people just don't want to read. I believe that the geeks have inherited the earth, and that all these things that we're talking about, Aquaman and the Avengers, 10 years ago, it was still kind of nerdy, and it was still kind of like, you read comics, but it's long since been very cool. So everybody loves Iron Man. Imagine you go anywhere in the Western world, maybe even the Eastern world too, and you talk about Ant-Man, and people know who you're talking about. And that was not the case.
Exactly.
Even 5 years ago, before the Ant-Man movie, but now people do know who that is. I think I think it's all of that. I think it's everything that we've talked about. I think it's a lack of accessibility because these comics today do not have good jumping off points. I mean, and I don't mean a number one because they constantly have new number ones, but they're not fresh. They're not accessible. So I think that is a problem. But I do also perceive that, and you're right, that the comics fan community has generally been very closed to new readers. To the point that somebody commented on one of my videos last week, and they said, I'm new to comics, and I want to learn I want to do the work, but I don't know where to start. Please don't hate me. That was the statement. I'm new. Oh, but it was and I respect old fandom. Please don't hate me. So this is somebody who's new to comics, and they've already picked up on the fact that we don't want you here. I mean, they didn't get it from me, but that seems to be the pervading sense.
Right.
It's a closed club.
Right. Exactly.
So you are right about that. But then I think look at all the bookstores that have closed too. Just people aren't reading anymore, and I think that that's a huge part of it is that we just don't want to read. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of things combined, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird dilemma, and it's it's become a big focus on where I'm going with the content for the I guess what the platform, because it's all over the place now between Patreon here, the YouTube channel, is that I want to help bring people to the hobby, because I think that's the only way ultimately it's going to survive, that our focus kind of changes. And, I even with the stuff you do at Serial at Midnight, though, I think you sell yourself short on, I feel like you're, okay, this is kind of going to be messed up, but I don't, again, a while ago, I used to listen to a lot of different comic book podcasters, and I'm friends with a lot of comic book podcasters. After, 13 and almost a half years in the game, I've collaborated with most. I helped few start. Few helped me start. It was, when I started out, it was super collaborative. And it just got to a point too, as I grew, I had to stop listening to other people because it and you've talked about this before on some of your videos or your live stream, actually, I think, where you were you have to be careful on how much you consume of certain things that are in a similar genre, because before you know it, it'll blend into your own thoughts, and you won't be able, and everybody will start sounding the same because everybody's listening to everybody else. So you kind of have to detach. I feel like you're way more, and I've always felt this way, you're very much an authority on comics, even more so than you give yourself credit for when you go back and you watch your videos. And even if you listen to the conversations we have here, you just don't lean on it as much, but you're very much an authority you've inspired me more so than anyone else to pick up certain stuff I wouldn't even be interested in. Like, I'm not a Superman fan. You talked about the death of Superman. I went out and I bought it and I loved it. You talked about Gotham by Gaslight. The passion in which and the knowledge in which you spoke about it made me go out and buy it, and I loved it. Even like after Into the Spider-Verse, and you start talking about the Spider-Verse and everything like that, it made me want to go out and pick that stuff up and read it. I hadn't had any. I knew this stuff was, out. When it was coming out, I heard about it, but I had just been so far detached from Spider-Man. It didn't sound interesting till you broke it down to me and laid it out, and I was like, now that's something I want to read. You've always had a gift for that. I just think you don't lean into it as much.
No, so I'm just gonna be honest. Those videos generally, when I make a comic book video for Serial at Midnight, it has a fraction of the viewership of any other video that I would make, which is part of what fuels my opinion that people just aren't interested in comics as much.
Got you.
Because like that video you talking about, where I was talking about Into the Spider-Verse, the movie review has way more views. Not way more views, but it has more views than the video that I made about the comics that inspired the movie. I did. So my buddy Josh Yabkuga wrote the Bubba Hotep comic, and I started talking about the Bubba Hotep and the Cosmic Bloodsuckers comic, and that video is one of my least viewed videos of anything that I've ever done. The Serial reviews get better views than this video that I talked, and I put so much into it. So I'm just like, man, there just does not seem to be interest. Maybe it's just not interest in me talking about those things. But at the same time, I say that, like, I did do a video about the Epic Collection line, and that is one of my biggest videos. So it does seem hit or miss.
I love that. Yeah, I love that video. That taught me a lot because I didn't know about, at the time, because I don't buy physical comics. But it's cool now they're releasing the Epic Collections digitally now. So I know maybe it's I picked up, I think, 2 recently over the holidays. I picked up a West Coast Avengers Epic Collection, and then I picked up it was West Coast Avengers. Gosh, and it was someone else, maybe X-Men or something like that. I picked up an Epic Collection, so they're putting those out digitally more now. So I was like, cool, and how they're collecting those stories. I'm like, that's like, I really like that format now. So yeah, you got me. You taught me about that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you do those videos, and I think they're really great, though. Overall, and I feel like that's where I struggle because, like, I don't get, I haven't even broke 200 subscribers yet on the YouTube channel. It's coming slowly but surely, but it's coming. But I guess I'm standing my ground on just being, because I'm a comic book channel. Because you have the thing where you do a variety of content and you do it all great, and you have the retro theme. You have the serial reviews. You have a wide gambit of content that is going to appeal to a more general audience. Where mine is kind of, is really a small kind of niche because I'm trying to be, because anybody can review a comic, and there's so many people on YouTube that just do like comic reviews. So I do some of that, but it's like, my main passion is doing the more stuff like the Comic Book Collector's Guide, and I'll do the movie reviews because like, just like you said, like when I was doing it as the podcast, when I was doing those mainly as a podcast, it was some of my lower episodes. Sometimes, like, people love the movie reviews and the spoiler movie reviews, but like when I would do the television show reviews, it didn't get the same things as I did the more topical stuff. People come for me for these conversations. The Comic Book Collector's Guide stuff, when I would do those occasionally, the top 10 list, those kind of things, really are that have driven the podcast for all the years, So I kind of just was like, when I started the YouTube channel, I was like, well, what content I can, do there? I shot the stuff over there. And it's still kind of the same thing. It's a wider format because certain times, not everyone is going to run out and watch a movie. They're not us. We're, like for some big comic book movies, we're going to go see in a theater immediately. For a lot of other people, I'm finding, like a lot of my stuff gets traction down the road, not right necessarily when I release it, but a month or two later, and then like it'll balloon or pop up, and I might have 5 views at first, and then it'll shoot up because now people are, or it's coming out on home video, so now people want to know about the movie before they rent it or buy it. So then I'll get this like explosion of views. So it's kind of a weird thing, like you said, how people perceive the content. You'll put all this work into it, and it kind of is deflating in a way. Be like, oh man, like people aren't feeling that. But me personally, I love when you do that content because I always feel like I learned something. I always feel like I learned something from it. You know, you teach me something like I didn't know about Epic Collections. Then you broke it down from the previous format with the essentials switching over to the Epic and how they changed. And I was like, I didn't know about the change. And then I was like, oh, now I'm going to start looking for Epic Collections, now that I know. I didn't know that was a new thing and it was a replacement for essentials, So.
Well, and I think that when I made that video, it was probably the only video on YouTube talking about that because I was early to it. And I think that's part of the reason for that video's success. But then the other things, it can be frustrating because that is why I've kind of cooled off on the comic stuff. It's not because I'm not reading or that I don't love them, but just they don't do well for me, which should not necessarily dictate what I decide to create content about. But like I did before Avengers Infinity War came out, I talked about like 10 of my favorite Avengers stories, and I didn't do very well. Like you think that that would be something that would have a wide appeal, but I think part of it is because it does have such a wide appeal. It doesn't get noticed. It doesn't. The internet does not need another Avengers. Like here's Avengers books you should read. So that's part of it, is just finding topics worthy of talking about.
And the time to drop them, like it's so funny. I've been going back and forth about this show idea that I've had for over a year now. Probably like a year and a half. I've had, because I'm always, and maybe at some point I'll either do a video or do a podcast, like really breaking down like the whole creative process I go about doing, all the different content for Comic Book Savant. But I'm constantly, when I have conversations with you, like even if we're texting and just keeping up, having general conversation, it'll spark a show idea. Or if I'm talking to my wife, or just having a general conversation with like friends, like if I'm online gaming or whatever, like certain times it will spark a show idea and I will jot it down, on my phone or whatever immediately. And then I'll go into Evernote because I keep everything in Evernote. And I'll have, I don't know, I got tens of 20s of templates now of just like, cause I just outline my shows. I don't like script them. I just outline them basically. And I have, like all the different weird formats of shows I've done over the years. And I have, a template I copy. I'll start putting in whatever the title is, and I'll develop it over time. Because I don't want to lose that idea. I have to put it down immediately so I don't forget it. Certain stuff, I came up ideas for episodes like 5 years ago that I still haven't done yet. I have like, if I could show it to you guys, I'm weird like that. I'm OCD. And I had this one about diversity in comics and race in comics, and I was really going to do it right before Black Panther came out. But then
bad, man.
But here's the thing. I paused on it because so many people were talking about that topic. I didn't want it to seem, because I came up with it months before, and I just was like, I don't know when it was a good time. It was Black History Month, and all that, and I was just like, you know what I mean? Because I want it to be genuine. I don't want it to be like, because you get that so much with podcasts and YouTubers, like, whatever's the hot topic at the moment, you're going to see, everybody's going to be dropping videos about it. And I didn't want it to be that. I want it to stand out as something that I meant it to be. And I still haven't done that episode. I keep going back to it. And it was like, I'm going to do it. But it's like, it doesn't feel right. And now it's like, it's coming back around again. And I was really going to do it maybe during the summer, I think, but then all the stuff was going on with my, my health and my foot and stuff, and I pulled back the trigger again, and it's like, no, but because I just don't, I think I probably just will go ahead and do the episode because I have a lot that I want to say on it. And I don't think I've ever held back from my emotions because it's going to be an interesting subject.
Episode.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting topic, and I think maybe people might be surprised on what I'm going to say on the topic, but I think it needs to be said. But again, certain times it's like you have to feel like you're doing it at the right time for you, and maybe if you hit it at the right time, like you said, I feel like timing is everything. When it comes to doing content like this via podcast, via YouTube, and we're still learning. I mean, you're just over 2 years on YouTube. You're an experienced podcaster. You did multiple podcasts on multiple different things for years, before. And I'm still learning when it comes to that. Certain times it has to feel right to you. You know what I mean? And sometimes if you drop it at the right moment in time, it'll catch and it'll have the effect that you want it to have. And I try to pinpoint that because I said it might be a little bit heavier than other stuff that I do. So then I worry about that as well. I don't want to be like too heavy, but I don't know. It's something that I'm passionate about and I want to do. But like I said, for about a year and a half or more, I've like sat with this one show and it keeps looking me in the face like, when you're going to do it, when you're going to do it. And it's like, I don't know. And I was just like, I just need to do it and just let it. Then it's off my chest because it's been picking at me for a while.
Especially if you feel passionate about it, because that is always what people are going to respond to. Is they respond to passion. If they'll give it a chance, if they'll click on it,
right,
give it a chance, they're going to respond to the passion behind it. And then if nothing else, you've got it done and it's in the tank. And then when Black Panther 2 comes around and whatever, when everybody else is talking about it, you can just throw it in. Oh yeah, just a reminder, this is a thing that I did too. If you want my opinion on it, you have it, or whatever you want to pitch it.
Right, that's true.
I mean, you dropped it, I'm not saying you save it, just go ahead and publish it and everything, but then you can just keep referring back to it because you've done it, and then it'll be, cumulatively, it will build an audience the more you refer to it.
Yeah, for sure. And like we both said when we talked about it, it's interesting being a content creator sometimes and trying to find your way because there's no set manual in doing it. And even after doing it for as long as I have, I'm still learning and figuring things out when it comes to it. And like you said, you see certain things just from numbers and how people respond and not respond to the certain things you put out. And it's just like, it's like, oh, well, maybe I'll, shuffle away from that for a little bit. And, you don't want to become a slave to the numbers, but then at the same time, you got to look at what people are consuming and give them more of that.
That's right. It's always about trying to find that balance between demand, like consumerism versus like creativity, because you have to, again, like you just said, if you don't want to just pander and how easy it would be, it because you make YouTube videos, how easy it would be to be like the 10 worst books of 2018. People would be all over that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what we want to do. That's not the content that we want to create. We're trying to do something different and special and driven by passion and driven by creativity, driven by positivity. And so, to make a video like the worst comics of the last 5 years, or like the worst comic book movies ever made, and then you make an avatar, you make your little thumbnail where you're holding your face and you look like you got a headache, and then boom, that's 10,000 views. But that's not what we want to do. And so it's always hard to balance, like, what will have appeal? Because you can't talk to nobody. If you're talking to nobody, it's not sustainable. So you have to balance that. Like, finding an audience for the content that you feel passionate about creating. And that is a harder line than it should be. It's harder to balance that than you would think it would be. But
yeah,
that is the balance. That's the struggle. That is the YouTube and the podcast struggle, really. But I think YouTube makes it worse. Yeah, it
really is. And, and like I said, you have to balance it out. And it's learning that balance for sure. Yeah, I got us off. That was me. I got us off track of what we were talking about.
We both picked 5 titles that are on this Comixology DC service that we wanted to recommend. You want to do those?
Yeah. So, well, you go with your first 5, and then I guess I'll follow up after you.
Okay. Well, see, my criteria for picking these, my criterion, I don't know, my guide for picking these is that I wanted books that all of the ones that I picked are from Comixology Unlimited, so that you can drop your $5.99 and you can read a substantial amount of stuff. So if it was if only volume, like Watchmen, if only the first 4 issues are part of Comixology Unlimited, it was immediately disqualified from my list because I wanted to provide good reading material. So with that being said, I chose, I guess no particular order, the New 52 run of Aquaman that started with Jeff Johns, The Trench specifically. I think The Trench is the best of that run. I think it's 48 issues and then a couple of point one, they do point issues now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a really, because Aquaman is it's so strange to me. Still haven't seen the movie, but Aquaman is super popular right now. I think mostly because of Momoa, but Aquaman is having a bigger moment than I think he has ever had before in the mainstream pop culture. And so if people want to come to Aquaman, I think this run is probably the most accessible of that. And I know that they tapped a little bit of it from the movie. But it starts with The Trench, and then I think there's 4 volumes before Jeff Johns leaves the book. And when he left the book, I mean, it dropped drastically.
Mm-hmm.
But that Jeff Johns stuff is really good. Have you read the full Jeff Johns run of Aquaman?
I haven't. I was looking in this because I think I was going to do a recommended reads for Aquaman, and I have most of the issues, the single issue. I was buying them at the time because I was buying when the New 52 started. They really start pushing the digital initiative, so I have I'm maybe 1 or 2 issues short for having his whole Aquaman run for the New 52. I read the first I think I read the first trade worth, the first 6 issues. So I read what probably will be in the volume 1 of The Trench. And I think I was starting with the second volume, which is the Others, I believe. And I maybe I read the first issue of that. So maybe I read the first 7 issues. But I have all the other single issues in my Comixology library that I picked up. So I just need to pick up the last couple of issues that ends John's run, and then I'll have that whole thing. But right before the movie came out too, the physical copy, they did an omnibus that has his whole run in it that just came out the week before the movie came out. I think the week or 2 weeks before the movie came out. That they haven't converted it digitally yet, but it is a physical copy. So if you guys want the whole run in one kit and caboodle, you can go to In Stock Trades, you can go to Amazon and get it's just Aquaman. I think it's Aquaman by Jeff Johns omnibus that has that.
And having read the whole the stuff after him, the 20 odd issues that came after he left the book,
mm-hmm. It's not nearly as good.
They're terrible. That's
wow.
Terrible. Yeah, bad.
So it just really went off a cliff after he left.
Yeah, it felt like there was no purpose, there was no direction. It just meandered into. I picked that run up on eBay. This was a year or so ago. I did a video about it, but I went from reading those I'd read 2 or 3 a night, and then once Jeff Johns left the book, I mean, if I could get through one without falling asleep, it was a miracle.
Wow.
They had no reason to exist.
Crazy. Got you. Okay.
Man, that's kind of hard on the creative teams that came behind this. I don't mean to be super negative about it, but I'm just saying, Jeff Johns loves Aquaman, and without Jeff Johns, that Aquaman title just felt like it had no direction.
Got you. And it seems like they're still trying to, because they've had a lot of start and stops and rebirth, and I know now they just started a new run because the movie came out, and they brought another creative team on, and yeah, it was really hot when he was on it, and you heard the most about it. And since then, it's just they keep putting them out, but you don't hear any buzz around it, at all. Not like you did when he was writing it.
Right. The Jeff Johns run and the Peter David run from the mid '90s to the mid 2000s. Mm-hmm. Those are what I would consider the definitive Aquaman runs.
For sure. Yeah.
At least at the modern time.
Yes. Yeah.
What you got?
For my 5, I also had The Trench on there because I thought just with the movie being out that, and a lot of it is based off of that. The movie is pulls from the Jeff Johns run. That that's definitely something you want to read. After you see the movie, the reference point for it. I also put Batman: The Complete Hush. So they have that.
Got that one on there too. That's on my list.
I got Wonder Woman. This is the new 52 run, Volume 1, The Lies. This is Cliff Chang and Brian Azzarello, which is funny. I love Brian Azzarello as a writer, and he writes 100 Bullets. And he's wrote Batman. He's done some other stuff. I think he did the Joker original graphic novel. He's done a lot of stuff, but he does gritty, crime stuff. So when they had first announced this, my jaw dropped because I was like, I know what kind of writer he is. And I was like, he's going to do Wonder Woman. But next to the Greg Rucka, George Perez stuff, it was an awesome run of Wonder Woman. His time on the book, him and Cliff Chang killed that book. I can't remember how many years he was on it. It was another thing too. I read most of that run, and I still have the rest of it to read. That I bought. I kept buying it, even though I fell off reading it. And I just got to get caught up on it. It just was some of the best Wonder Woman stories I had read, and Cliff Chang's artwork. They just really took the character in different directions and did different things and start playing with her origins and things of that nature. It's a really solid run. So if you like Wonder Woman at all, definitely check out that first volume. It's on there. You can, check it out and read that first volume. If you like it, go from there. I didn't go too in depth to see what other volumes. So I mainly picked something more like trades that I know you can check out on the service because it's just getting started. Like he said, certain things are limited on what you can read on there for free before you might, like I said, for Watchmen, it's the first 4 issues, but they don't have the trade for it. So that's where I kind of stuck it to trades where you can at least read the first volume of it to see if it's something that will catch your interest, and then you can pick your poison if you want to pay or just wait for future months. Because you have to remember too, they're just getting started. They will be adding books constantly. Because I know when Marvel came on, they didn't even wait. Now it's slowed down to where they add new books every month. But in the beginning, they kept adding books every few days. They kept throwing new books on to build up the library on the service. So I'm imagining it's going to be a similar thing with DC as well. So if you read the first volume, wait a little bit. And I think the subsequent volumes will come over time pretty quickly for some of this stuff. Two other suggestions: 52, Volume 1 and Volume 2, the new edition. That is a new collection of the 52. What was it? Was it about weekly series they did years ago? It used to be collected in 4 trades, but the new edition has it broken down into 2 volumes, and you get all 52 issues between the 2 volumes instead of the 4, and both are on there. So you can actually read all of 52 for free through the Comixology Unlimited Service. So that's a worth.
That was on my list too, but I have the volumes 1 through 4. I didn't realize it.
Yeah,
I didn't see the newer editions. Yes.
Yeah, because I recently bought them, and so when I saw that, I was like, it's confusing how it is up there. But you make sure when you're looking for it to check it out that you look for 52 Volume 1 and Volume 2, and it's the new edition, and it's just broken down into those 2 volumes instead of the 4.
See, I looked up 52 specifically, and I didn't see that. I think that I'm going to say this too. I think the Comixology search engine can use a little bit.
Oh, the search engine is horrible. Yeah, as much as I've used it, it is horrible. I've just learned to sometimes I will go through and just scroll through page by page and just will find stuff better like that than trying to do a search, and it's horrible sometimes. It is so bad.
For people that haven't read 52, I'm just going to do a quick pitch on it. Why I think it's on my list too. Mm-hmm. Is that at the time that it came out, 2004 or 5, 6, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It was. I have a lot of experience with the DC universe, but it was the main characters. It was the Superman, Batman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, your Justice League tier characters. 52 was like a tour of all the peripheral characters. So by the time that 52 issue run was over, I knew so much about. I mean, they introduced new characters too. I believe that was where they introduced Batwoman, or basically really built Batwoman.
Mm-hmm.
But the Question, Lobo plays a part in that. The cosmic stuff of like Adam Strange and Animal Man, and like stuff on Thanagar. Like they give you, it is a survey of the DC universe outside of the main, the trinity of characters.
Mm-hmm.
They made me care about characters that I did not know who they were, and by the time that was over, I mean, I was in on all of that stuff.
Black Adam.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is where I talk about where we need to recommend cool stuff like this, because you don't hear people ever talk about 52. That was a groundbreaking event when that happened. That was DC had brought the top creators. Well, it was a Grant Morrison, Mark Waid, Greg Rucka.
Keep talking. I'll be right back.
Just all of the top creators and writers in comics at the time came together to put out this weekly book, and they had a ton of different artists on it. It came out weekly, so each week it was an event, and like he said, it covered the whole DC universe. The main Trinity characters were kind of off the board, and they took lesser known characters and really built them up. You wouldn't have had the new 52 Animal Man run if it wasn't for 52. You wouldn't have Batwoman being such a substantial character. She was reintroduced from being out of the comics since the 40s or 50s or something like that. They reestablished her character. Renee Montoya as the Question was introduced. Black Adam was introduced. Just so many characters. It was a really, really good time. In comics at that time, it was a huge event, and nothing like that was done before. They tried to replicate it later, and they kept the next few years. They kept trying to reproduce the success of 52, but each time it was less and less because it wasn't the same talent. It was, it put a stress on the writers and the artists as well to keep doing that year after year. I can't remember what the follow up was called. They did quite a few, and then they did some Batman weekly events that ran for a year as well, and they just lost steam as they kept going. But 52 is one to definitely worth your while to check out for sure.
Did you mention Booster Gold?
Oh, Booster Gold. I totally forgot about. It was so many characters. What was he was on Legends of Tomorrow. Rip Hunter. He was on. I got introduced to so many different characters that I knew nothing about from the DC universe during that 52 run.
The series had a little bit of an edge to it, but it wasn't dark. I don't really feel like it was dark. I feel like it was kind of fun. It
was fun. It had some dark bits, especially some of the Black Adam stuff. But it was just so fun. It was so fun, and for me at the time, it was just so different because, like you said, we got away from the main characters and really got to know the universe as a whole and all the other people that make it great, and they can be just as great. And he elevated so many characters, and we cared about them just as much, if not more, as the Trinity characters during that run.
Really, more. You should just decide it was more for me. I was like, man, I had to go after that, and it spun off into so many things because I had to go start collecting the original Question title.
Yeah.
Late 80s, I guess it was, and then so much of that stuff. It was just like, hey, here's a character that you might not know a whole lot about. Let's have some fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. And it really, like I said, spun off and start making you look and care about a lot of different characters. The only other recommendation after 52 that I had as far as DC Comics was the JLA Morrison years, the 1997 through 2006. They have the volume 1 of that, the Grant Morrison run that you can check out on there. And I think that we would have never got Justice League or Justice League Unlimited cartoon if it wasn't for this run. This was I remember when this JLA book dropped, and it was Grant Morrison. It was the hottest book on the shelves. I remember it was just sick. Everybody was snatching this up. I'm trying to see when the last time I reread some of these issues. It was kind of recently in the past maybe 2 years, and it still holds up pretty good. It's fun. It's different.
When I read those, so I got into Justice League in the early 2000s. It was during that volume, but it was later on, like in the 30s or the 40s, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to read the Grant Morrison stuff, which I do have it in trade, but when I went back to read the Grant Morrison stuff, I hated it.
You hated it?
So I got it. Yeah, I need to revisit it because
we're gonna have to do that in the episode. Then. Oh, we got to do that in the episode. Then I thought it was fun. I really thought it was fun at the time. But again, it's been a while since so maybe I need to reread it and see. I know I have I bought these volumes like on sale.
When it started, wasn't it even like the Electric Superman? Like when Superman was like blue?
Not in the very beginning, but yeah, okay. That did happen. I think maybe in the 20s or something like that. They went through that change. Yeah, it was kind of rough. But I ain't gonna lie, I didn't mind the Electric Superman, but I'm not a huge Superman fan, so don't look at me funny. I see you looking at me, Heath. Don't look at me like that. I like the blue Superman.
Shade at you right now?
Yeah, I feel the shade coming from you right now. I like the blue Electric Superman. He seemed cool to me. I'm just saying. I don't know. It
was just so gimmicky. It was just
it was so gimmicky. It really was. It was like
they did everything but marketed like books that you could plug into your wall out with.
Yeah, they did.
They just didn't think about that.
They didn't, and they changed it back real quick too. So it was like,
yeah, they did.
Yeah, they're like, it was like 10 issues, and it was like, oh, well, yeah, he's back to normal now. Just don't even think about that over there. It's gone. It's gone. Trust me, it's gone.
Electric Super. What are you talking about? No.
So, what other recommendations did you have?
I have on the Jeff Johns note. I have the Flash by Jeff Johns series of trade paperbacks are on there for free for the Comixology Unlimited. I think there's 3 of them up there.
I was going to recommend that. I didn't see Volume 1 though. I saw Volume 2, 3, and 4. I didn't see
that's Comixology. I got it up right now. I got my iPad right here. Let me make sure.
Unless I missed it, but I was like looking for the first volume, and I was like, I don't remember seeing it.
All right, let's see here. Flash, Jeff Johns. But I'll talk about it while I'm looking. Is that was such a nobody really cared about the Flash before Jeff Johns got a hold of it. I mean, they did in the 80s.
Hush your mouth, sir. Hush your mouth. He was relevant because Mark Waid was writing it, and Mark Waid left it. It was good when Mark Waid was writing it, and he left it.
You're right.
It was good because I bought those issues, and they were good stuff. But he came on, and I feel
I was thinking Mark Waid wrote it after Jeff Johns. I'm backwards. So.
No. Well, see, Mark Waid was on the book a few times, though. He left, come back, left. He had a thing with Flash. He couldn't leave Flash alone. But,
did he write it after Jeff Johns left?
Yeah, he came back on the book too. Yeah, he kind of like bookend. But yeah, this is the book that really put Jeff Johns on the map.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'm going to redeem myself with my next recommendation. But yeah, no, that's true. It is. Maybe I should say it put Jeff Johns on the map. But I do remember being like, holy crap, Flash is like. He really made that Rogues Gallery something special. He
did. Now that he revolutionized the book, I will say that it wasn't bad before, but it was a lighter fare, and the characters weren't nearly as developed. That's where they, and they needed to do something to revitalize the book and take it in a different direction for where Waid had it for years before, and he did that. And he focused on the Rogues Gallery. He built them up as, like basically co-leads in the book, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm looking on it. It is the Flash by Jeff Johns, book 1 is Comixology Unlimited.
Oh, okay, cool. Because when I was looking, I kept trying to find that first volume, and I saw like 2, 3, and 4, and I'm like, well, where's the first one? That doesn't make any sense.
I couldn't find 4, so
or maybe it was 1, 2, and 3, and I just was looking at it wrong. I am dyslexic.
Serious work, you guys. If anybody Comixology, Amazon, if you listen.
So. Okay, so you got Flash. So you got Flash by Jeff Johns, volumes.
Yep. 1. Okay, the last one that I have to recommend is this is where I get my credibility back after that comment about Flash being Jeff Johns making us care about that character. I'm going to go with Jack Kirby's The Demon Complete Run 1 through 16. You can read for free on Comixology Unlimited.
I didn't know that was on there. Really?
It's on there. Yeah.
Oh man.
Jack Kirby left Marvel and went to DC. Well, I think he went back and forth a few times, but I guess it was after a fight with Stan Lee. Jack Kirby went to DC, and it was while he was in DC that Jack Kirby did all the work with the New Gods, did the Fourth World stuff, and he did a run on the Demon, the Demon Etrigan, and it is classic Kirby. I have not read all 16 issues of that, so this is really cool for me to have found out that there. But it's a 16-issue series. It was I think they did an omnibus for it, which I believe is out of print. But now it's on Comixology Unlimited.
That's cool. I guess before we close this out, I did even go to the DC Vertigo side, and I have 5 quick recommendations and of books to read. And I know you don't read a lot of Vertigo stuff, so I just
read a little bit. I'm not anywhere. Like I read a few volumes. I have a couple of volumes of Fables, and I've read some of it. I haven't loved what I've read because I tend to go for more escapism and
right, yeah,
not dark.
Gotcha. Sometimes I read this kind of stuff for like a palate cleanser from if I read too much superhero stuff. Well, my 5 recommendations, I just did first volumes of particular books. First off, 100 Bullets, Volume 1, First Shot, Last Call. This is a great series. I haven't finished the whole series of 100 Bullets. I just purchased the last trade I needed. I think the last one I did and reviewed, I did a series of reviews of each trade as I read it. You gotta go back and look through the archives of the old episodes because it's been since I started the podcast, and I've been slowly going through this series. But I love it every time I go back to it. Great, gritty. Brian Azzarello, which I mentioned earlier from the Wonder Woman run. This is like his first series that he really put him on the map over at DC Vertigo. That led him to the main DC universe later. He's done a lot of creator-owned work and great writer, great. But it's his really gritty type street crime, espionage, spy type stuff. It's a real crazy mix, but it's a fun book to read and to get in a series to get into. Next is Fables Volume 1, Legends in Exile. Fables is a really good series. If you like a show like, what was the show that was on ABC? Was it Once Upon a Time? Yeah. It was basically Fables. They kind of took the concept of Fables and did it before. Did you hear about that? That they were actually going to do a Fables show, and they couldn't come to terms. So then ABC just basically took the same concept and just changed it up and then put their show out.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of wild. Then I have next recommendation is Scalped Volume 1, Indian Country. Short synopsis I can give for Scalped. It is basically the Sopranos on an Indian reservation. Jason Aaron, his first really work that put him on the map. He's killing it over at Marvel right now, but he started over on Vertigo with Scalped. He has so many different books out there now because he still does creator-owned work, but I think he does stuff over at Image now. But he's just a phenomenal writer. I love me some Jason Aaron. But it started. I read this. He came on my radar. He started doing stuff at Marvel, and I just started following him and been following his work ever since then. Next book, DMZ Volume 1, On the Ground. Pitch for this book is basically. You're going to know this, Heath, because you're a movie head. Do you remember the movie that had Denzel Washington, maybe Annette Bening, and it was like they quarantined, like it was a wall up. I can't remember what the movie was, but it was like it was a demilitarized zone because that's what DMZ stands for. But it's kind of like that. Like I won't necessarily say it's a post-apocalyptic future, but the world is kind of an event happened. The world's kind of split up, and these DMZ zones. And this guy, he's like a photojournalist, and he's going through the DMZ or the world, and he's writing these like underground stories, and he's like experiencing this new world, and it's really interesting. It's a different, and I read maybe the first 2-3 volumes of the book. I can't remember how many volumes in total, but it's really interesting. It's totally different.
It was the movie you're talking about was The Siege.
The Siege. If you've ever seen the movie The Siege, it kind of has that kind of vibe to it. But you like on the boots with this like normal guy that's like this photojournalist, and he's kind of maneuvering in this crazy new world and trying to, you know, show, you know, the inner workings and all that kind of stuff. It's a very interesting book. I really enjoyed it. I want to eventually finish reading it. Again, sometimes it's hard because there's so many books to read, to go, like when you start something, to cycle back around through to it. And then the last recommendation I have, and this was a book I actually read and I reviewed, The First Trade, years ago on the podcast, and I didn't like, but I think I just wasn't a target audience. But I feel like this book is super relevant now, more so than ever. And it's
yes. Oh, I was gonna say it's an Ex Machina.
Yeah, Ex Machina. I couldn't stand this book. I just wasn't feeling it. But I
didn't like it either. I read the first volume too. I didn't like it either.
Yeah, but I think it's some people might like it, especially with the political climate being the way it is now, and it's plays with superhero trope mixed in with politics. It's this guy. I think he's like mayor of New York or something like that. If I remember, governor. I can't remember. Was it mayor of the city or was it governor of the state? Something like that.
I think he's the mayor, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I think it's right. The mayor, and I feel like. It didn't call for me, but I just feel like a lot of people like those kind of, you know, kind of political intrigue thing. And I feel like that might speak to a lot of people if that's your thing. It just didn't work for me, but a lot of people praised this book. I didn't like the first volume. I never went forward with it, but they had the first book because they did like oversized collections that you can read on there for free. So it's worth at least giving a try. It has some great artwork to it, but like I said, and I think this is Brian K. Vaughan, which is a really good writer. This is probably one of the few things he wrote that I liked the least of what I've ever read from him was this one book. But a lot of people loved it, so I recommended it just based if you like that kind of book, it'll hit that sweet spot for you. But it just didn't work for me. But that's my 5 recommendations there. So that's all I got on my side, my friend. But do you have anything else?
No, I have no Vertigo. Is Why the Last Man up there?
Yes, Why the Last Man is on there.
You did a whole list at the beginning, but I couldn't remember if that was.
Yeah, it's on there. I never got a chance to read Why the Last Man, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. But I don't think I ever personally read it.
I read the first couple of that one, dude. It was okay. It's fun. Some of that stuff, like I read, and I was like, yeah, it's fine. But I don't know. 39-year-old Heath in 2019 really loves his superheroes because they help him escape from the real world.
Exactly. But that's all that I have. Is there anything else that without me sidetracking us, that we missed that we originally were going to talk about? I think we hit everything.
I don't think so. I think that was it. Yeah, we wanted to talk about Comixology, having DC. We wanted to talk about if we thought that meant anything from DC. I guess we could just circle back and say, like, you know, is this? I think we both. I won't speak for you. I think this is the right move for DC.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I think it was a move they needed to make a long time ago, but I think they're kind of listening to the feedback and trying to become more consumer friendly and kind of do some of that fan service that they know now they kind of need to do. And they're starting to listen to their fans and giving them what they actually want. So yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction for them for sure.
Better late than never.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But that's all we have for this episode for you guys. Heath, tell them where they can find you.
SerialAtMidnight.com.
And
everything's there.
It's things there. And you can always find me, again, at comicbooksavant.com, on social media, Instagram, Twitter, at comicbooksavant. Again, this is Spinner Rack Bros, episode 6, if I remember the count correctly. If you haven't already, stop by Serial at Midnight YouTube channel. The last episode, I think episode 5, where we talk about Scott Pilgrim. We did a video episode of it. I put it out on social media and retweeted it when Heath put it out. That was the last episode we did. I don't know, maybe it's about a month ago now because of the holidays, and probably it's been about a month ago. So if you haven't seen that yet, that's actually, you can see our beautiful faces on video.
You can see yours.
Huh?
You can see yours. Mine's just completely washed out.
Yeah, it's blown out. And we're going to be doing more. We're looking to do more video soon. It's not the best quality video. We both lamented that fact, but we're working on it. So we're going to change it up. So you're going to see us more this year with, like, we're going to change it up. We're going to still do occasional podcast, video on his channel, on my channel, maybe even a live stream. I don't know. We're going to go all types of crazy with it this year. We're going to give you more Spinner Rack Bros, more than you can stand. Trust me. But but that's all we have for you for this episode. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Spinner Rack Bros. You guys take care. Say bye, Heath.
Bye, Heath.